This is Radioonfire.com. Yours truly, Don McKay, in here. Thank you for joining me. Of course, we're broadcasting from the Radioonfire studios here in Baltimore, Maryland. And, you know, I knew it was coming, obviously, because it was much talked about. The president of this great country gave his first formal speech from the Oval Office. Isn't that interesting that 2 years in, Trump is giving his first Oval Office address? And here's why they don't normally have him do this, because he's actually not good at it. When Trump is confined to teleprompter, oh, wait, let's not forget how bad they talked about, specifically Trump and others, talked about President Obama and the teleprompter, and he would never use a teleprompter. He wouldn't need a teleprompter. Who's up here reading a teleprompter, squinting? I guess the writing was too small because he's squinting and he's squinting and he's squinting. But President Trump, the ultimate hypocrite, Trump that is. So he made his appeals for the wall, cited misleading statistics of a crisis and crime along the border. This is your president, Donald Trump. So he doubled down on one of the biggest gambles of his presidency tonight, with a televised appeal to try to pressure Congress into paying for the long-promised border wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. Who's paying for the wall? Mexico. Remember all that? Where's all that stuff? Right? Now you forgot. Well, actually, you couldn't get Mexico to do it. You were just talking, and now you're trying to make something out of this campaign promise that should have never happened. So, government partially closed, and he's trying to make lawmakers give in to this foolishness. Now, this strategy, unlikely to work. In his first primetime Oval Office address of his presidency, his proposed barrier, now whatever he's calling it today, is supposed to be made of concrete. Now it's steel. So he says 18 days this shutdown's been going on. So in this 9-minute speech, made no new arguments. Did you expect any? No new arguments, but included multiple misleading assertions. The president sought to recast the situation at the Mexican border as a humanitarian crisis. Can you believe that? Of course, there was no mention of how they handled the good people at the border. And he opted against declaring a national emergency, which was smart, to bypass Congress. He didn't need to do that. I think that the fringe right wing, the people that are just, the right wingers, the really hardcore ones, they probably want him to declare an emergency. Not a good idea. You declare an emergency, and any ounce of dignity that you have left will be gone, because you're going to be doing all the things that you claimed were unconstitutional that President Trump complained about President Obama doing. So he's threatened to do this, though. He's threatened to declare a national emergency. But he exonerated Democrats for, well, that's probably the wrong word, but he wants to blame Democrats for the shutdown that he said he was going to take the heat for, accusing the Democrats of hypocrisy and exposing the country to criminal immigrants. Now, it's often talked about by Republicans that people, including Schumer, voted for the wall, voted for some type of a fence, the Secure Fence Act in the past. There is a fence already, but that's not good enough. Trump wants another structure, but it's not really about the structure. And I want to make sure people understand that it's not about the structure for Trump, really. It's just about the fact of him saying something during the campaign and trying to pull it off. That's all it's about. That's all this is about. Now, how much more American blood must we shed before Congress does its job? Trump asked, citing a litany of grisly crimes said to be committed by illegal immigrants. President Trump asked Americans to call their lawmakers. He added, "This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice. This is about whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve." He's horrible at reading speeches. He's much better at just speaking off the cuff. If Trump was regulated to a teleprompter during the 2016 campaign, he would not have won. He would not have won. But now, Trump said that the wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico. This is a false claim. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Long ago, Trump abandoned his campaign promise that Mexico would pay for the wall. Instead, he now makes the case that Mexico will indirectly pay for the barrier thanks to the potential increase in tax revenue generated by his replacement for the NAFTA. Over how much time do they think they're going to make this money? It's just crazy. Now, the New Deal has yet to be even ratified by Congress, where the Democrats have expressed opposition. He's going to have trouble getting that thing done anyway. That's a whole separate issue. Even if the new United States, Mexico, Canada agreement ends up raising tax revenue, there's nothing earmarking that money will be for a wall. Income and corporate taxes are general revenue that have to be appropriated by Congress. They're not going to just divert all that money to his wall, assuming that it even gets ratified. So that is just one of many of his falsehoods. Another thing that he said, every day, Custom and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country. This is a bit inflated. This is a bit overstated. Now, available Custom and Borders Protection data shows a total of 396,579 people were apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol for the fiscal year 2018 at the southwest border, which would mean an average of 1,087 per day. Hardly the thousands that Trump purports. And the number differs each month. So it's not like it's locked in with that. Now, the highest number of apprehensions was back in September 2018 with the daily average of 1,300. So apprehensions were still well below the historic levels of the early 2000s. Annual apprehensions back then topped 1 million. So 2017 hit a historic low, and 2018 it went up slightly. So another Trump thing, All Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. Very difficult to know how much or how little undocumented immigrants cost the United States. Now, many experts contest the notion that undocumented immigrants are a strain on the economy. The 2017 analysis noted that undocumented immigrants make considerable tax contributions. So, Trump also said at the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This is a lie. Democrats have long opposed Trump's campaign promise that he would build a concrete wall on the border. They did not propose a steel barrier as an alternative. They're against the whole thing. They're against the complete construction of any new steel or concrete or barbed wire or plastic or marshmallow barrier at the southern border. They have only kept the door open to funding a border barrier as part of a broader immigration deal, which is what makes sense. They need more surveillance equipment, more scanners to check the trucks and stuff that are coming through. That's what they need. More drones, more GPS systems, more eyes in the sky, more cameras, more boots on the ground. That's what they need. Now, Trump also said that Chuck Schumer has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past. Now, this is actually correct, but context is very important. Now, Schumer previously supported legislation to build physical barriers on the U.S.-Mexico border. Most notably, Schumer and other Democrats supported the 2006 Secure Fence Act that authorized the construction of several hundred miles of fencing along the border, but not a wall. Fencing, much cheaper, and a wall, just the fencing, right? All right, now, as long as the government remains shut down, the Senate Minority Leader and the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have refused to offer any funding for a border barrier. So that's where they stand with that. Couple more. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. So some 58,222 Americans died as a result of the Vietnam War. In 2017, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention said the number of total drug overdose deaths was 70,327. Now, these are the numbers, but Trump's assertion is a bit misleading, conflating the drugs coming across the U.S.-Mexico border with the total drug deaths in the United States. In addition, it's not currently known whether overdose deaths will increase or decrease for the 2018 data. We don't know. So, Trump's figures also don't distinguish between deaths caused by drugs smuggled into the country versus those prescribed by doctors. And that's so important because so many of the overdose deaths were prescribed by doctors. Drugs that were prescribed by doctors. This is important. He also said 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted on the dangerous trek up through Mexico. Trump acknowledged the violence migrants face in transit to the U.S. when he said this, right? Indeed, it's very violent. It's very violent. Now, according to the data from Doctors Without Borders, 68% of the migrants and refugees entering Mexico reported being victims of violence during their transit. And nearly 1/3 of the women said that they were sexually abused. Now, this very violence is also why women have chosen to come here. So, every week, 300 of our citizens are killed by heroin alone, and 90% of which floods across from our southern borders. So, now while Trump's statistics on heroin deaths, it is factual. It is true. It's unclear what a border wall would do to reduce the amount of heroin coming across the border. If they put up more walls, right? But they don't have the proper hardware, equipment to detect these drugs coming through the legal points of entry, what good is the wall, right? And the wall is not going to do that. The wall is not going to help that at all. So last Trump fact that I want to check. He said, all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Now, there is some evidence that a small slice of native-born workers may see wage decreases because of undocumented immigrants competing for similar jobs, dragging down wages. Okay. Now, research shows that the negative effects are concentrated among workers without college degrees, who are disproportionately African American, but also includes earlier generations of immigrants. Now, in general, economists have determined that immigrants, undocumented or not, tend to help American workers by serving in low-skilled jobs that create more opportunities for native-born to move into managerial and knowledge-based roles. So, in this, when you look at things in its totality, what he's saying is misleading. And, so his speech was short. Anybody who was, feeling something before hearing the speech, after hearing his speech, there were no changes made. Like, whatever you thought is what you thought. Trump did not change anything. After this speech on many networks, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer gave just under 5-minute response in their rebuttal, which they just reaffirmed the positions that they already have highlighted before. No new ground covered there. Everybody kind of went to their corners. It is what it is. They're kind of doubling down. But I think that time is ticking. Somebody's going to blink in this game of chicken, and I think there's going to be Trump. It has to be Trump. How long is he going to let this shutdown go on when it's hurting the very people who voted for him, in addition to people who voted for Hillary? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at The Dom and K Show, at Radioonfire. I will be back 6 p.m. this evening to talk some more. See you guys a little bit later.